In this video, we're discussing the summary question given to you on the reading portion of the TOEFL exam. On this kind of question, you will have 3 correct answers. The one thing to remember that's important about this kind of question is that you may find 3 correct answers among the answer choices, but what you're looking for are the 3 answers that best fit the actual question and what it's asking you to look at. This is worth 2 points on the exam, and you will have 6 answer choices given, of which you will choose 3. At the end of your reading passage for each portion of the reading exam, you will either have one of these types of questions or one of the table category, but not both. And this is one of the less common questions, but you still need to be prepared to answer it correctly. So let's take a look here. What I have is the full reading passage and the question so that you can kind of get an idea of how this will look. This is another one of those reading questions that you'll need to have an understanding of the passage as a whole in order to answer correctly. But again, because it's the last question given, you should be pretty comfortable and confident with the information given to you in the passage by this point. Although that doesn't mean you shouldn't give it another quick scan and always double check your answers before submitting. And as always, we have a few strategies for you that are ready to go to take into the exam with you. So let's go over strategy number 1. If done correctly, strategy number 1 is really the only one you should need. This strategy tells you to eliminate incorrect answers. So let's take a look at the question and see if we can go ahead and eliminate some incorrect answers from our sample here. So the directions tell you an introductory sentence for a brief summary of the passage is provided. You need to complete it by selecting 3 answer choices that express the most important ideas in the passage. I'm emphasizing this because it's important to remember they're only asking you about the ideas that are most important. They don't need the general or minor details, because you will find those in the answer choices, but we just need the key ideas. If we were going to summarize this whole passage in 4 sentences, what information would have to be present? And it tells you it's worth 2 points. And here it says, Charles Darwin's theory of evolution was a revolutionary idea that described how natural selection influences the evolution of species. So this is our sentence number 1 for our summary, and we need to choose 3 out of these 6 choices to complete the summary. So to get started, I'm assuming that you've read this whole passage, the Charles Darwin information about his theory, his book, his life. And let's see if we can go ahead and eliminate some of the obviously incorrect answers, even without pinpointing specific parts in the passage. Because remember, by this point, you will have answered questions about this passage, you'll have read it a few times over. Well, the first thing that jumps out at me is answer choice C. Creationists strongly object to the premise of the theory of evolution. Well, going through this whole passage, this says nothing about creationists and objections to the premise of the theory of evolution. Even though it does mention that it's controversial, it doesn't say who is disagreeing with it. So we can immediately eliminate this. This is where it's important to note that if you go into a passage and you already know some information about it, and it's likely that this will happen, you're studying for the TOEFL, you're planning to maybe go to school and study specific subjects, so you might have an idea already about what the passage is covering. If you were to already have some information about Darwin's theory of evolution, you might know that this is true, but this is not what's being covered in this passage. So always be careful to kind of separate what you already know from what is being presented to you, because the TOEFL is not testing you, this section of the reading is not testing you on what information you're coming in with, but if you can read and understand the information that they are giving you at that time. Okay, what other information can we go ahead and eliminate? Well, if you look at answer choice E, we can definitely feel comfortable getting rid of this answer. The theory of evolution was proven by Darwin's book On the Origin of Species. Anything that is a theory can't necessarily be proven. because the whole idea, the very definition of theory, is that it's an idea. It's something that maybe has some pretty good evidence behind it, but not enough to consider it proven. So we can go ahead and eliminate this choice. Now you could keep going further, but for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to stop eliminating here and move on to strategy number 2. Strategy number 2 tells you to eliminate any minor details. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, there will be information given to you in the answer choices that's true, that's stated in the passage, unlike answer choices C and E, which were not. And this is what we need to identify with this strategy and get rid of, because if it's a minor detail, it cannot be so important to the summary of the passage. Remember, we only have 3 sentences to summarize this whole passage. So any minor details we can get rid of. Let's look at the answer choices we have left and see if we can identify that last answer we need to eliminate in order to come to our 3 correct answers. A says natural selection explains how species change gradually over time. Well, this is covered extensively in this passage. It's also a very main idea for Charles Darwin's theory, so let's leave that one. B, the theory of evolution describes how species branch out from a common ancestor. Well, the theory of evolution is a major point in this passage, so we'll leave that. D says Charles Darwin originally enrolled to study medicine. Right here, we kind of get an idea that this does not seem like a main point of the passage, unless this whole passage is discovering how he came to do what he did, which it's not. It's only briefly covered in paragraph 1. Then this information, while true and accurate, is not going to be considered a main idea or a part of our summary for the whole passage. So we can safely eliminate answer choice D, and that leaves us with our final 3rd choice, which is both Darwin and On the Origin of Species are among the most influential things to happen to naturalist science. If we're double checking if that's true, it is true. It's stated in the passage quite a few times, so we can confidently choose answer choices A, B, and F as our 3 sentences which summarize this whole passage. So remember, when you are tackling these summary questions on the reading portion of the exam, to give a little extra time, even though it might seem nerve-wracking to allocate some extra time to this question, it is worth more points. It's worth 2 points, so it's worth giving a little bit extra time. You can start by taking strategy A, eliminating incorrect answers, and then strategy B, eliminating minor details in order to tackle this question successfully, and I think you're ready to do it.